I have no expectations on my husband. I let him do what he does. Because the thing is, when we have expectation, now there's this standard that we're holding someone else to. And if we don't communicate that, chances are we're going to be disappointed. And whose fault is that? That's our fault.
Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey, guys, how are you today? I love the guest that I'm going to have on next. Her name is Jeanell Greene. And what really drew me to her was I saw a little video where she talked about that she's a marriage strategist and that she wants to help 10 million lives. She wants to transform 10 million lives, that she talks about marriage, love, family, and forgiveness. And just a really quick bio on her from her voice. What she says about it is that I'm a passionate, no BS relationship coach and speaker who loves to get deep, vulnerable, and intimate conversations going. I'm a certified life and relationship coach and work with both couples, individuals to find more power, freedom, and joy in life, especially within family. And what really drew me into her was she was talking about children having a right to see a beautiful marriage, parents in front of them. And that what I really believe, and this is why I love this woman, is that I believe that a blissful marriage is possible. And she's been married 17 years, and her description is that her marriage is a blissful marriage. And I believe her. And I think we've been taught all along the way to see that marriage in and of itself cannot reach certain heights. We've been taught that marriages are adversarial. And I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I believe in being able to have a marriage that isn't filled with conflict and it's not, people warring against one another. And there's really, really simple ways to do that. And, I have my philosophy, and I'm sure this beautiful soul does too. And you're going to learn a lot about your family, about marriage, and what's possible for you. So without any further ado, here she is, Jeanell. Hey, guys, how are you today? As I mentioned 2 minutes ago, we have Jeanell Greene. And what I want to pre-frame for you is that you're going to learn a tremendous amount about real relationships, about real forgiveness, about how to handle things that most people believe would derail a relationship. And this woman right here is going to give you a unique perspective on how to overcome any of the imagined problems or adversarial experiences that people have in relationships. Her and I both share the same vision and perspective and value that marriage has been sold in our society, a really ridiculous bill of goods that says that marriage can't be great. And I am here to tell you that that is not true. And so is Jeanell. You can have a great marriage. And here she is, the woman to tell it all. So hi, Jeanell. Welcome.
Hey, Alison. Thank you. I'm so excited to have this juicy conversation with you.
It's juicy. All right. So tell us what I would love for you. I know that you have had historical stuff, and I would love for you to share with us what you think is valuable. You are an expert or have a different perspective on infidelity and your own experience with being married and divorced. I'd love for you to just share a bit of that to give us a background to how you've become so passionate to get this message out about marriage and connection.
I would love to. Oh, where do I begin? Okay, I'm going to start with my divorce. I usually start at my childhood, but I'm going to go backwards. So I was married for the first time around the age of 24. And basically what happened was we were great. And then as soon as we got married, it was almost like the day we came home from our honeymoon, everything changed. It was like this mask that came off. and I saw these true colors, which was not shown to me before we got married.
Wow.
So I felt duped. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. Yes.
And so I spent the next 2 years really feeling resentful and angry and lonely. You know, my parents had a fantastic marriage. My parents, I was blessed to have two parents who really loved each other. They were affectionate. They were playful. We all, you know, I'm Filipino, so we always had people in the house.
I love Filipino culture.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
You know, we went to church together.
Mm.
They even had a business together.
Yeah.
So I really got to see love and family at its finest.
Mm.
So I had that expectation for my marriage, that I would have a husband that would help me around the kitchen, who might even cook once in a while, who would maybe help vacuum. No, got none of that. So I was really, really upset. Anyway, it so happens that someone comes into my life and says, hey, Jeanell, there's this transformational course happening. You should go check it out. And so I went to this info session. I brought my husband with me. And through the whole thing, I kept looking at him and going, you need this. You need to get fixed because you're messed up. So we go to this weekend. And by the end of this weekend, I had this major epiphany that I am not being responsible for my life. I have not dealt with trauma from my childhood, from my dad, and that I had actually been blaming him and putting my own expectations on him and making him wrong and then punishing him.
Yeah.
And so that was when my personal growth, personal development journey started. And I just became obsessed with like, why am I the way I am? Why is he the way he is? You know? And so at the end of it, I got to sit him down and I said to him, listen, I just got to come clean with you. I have been not great with you. I've been mean. I've been judgmental. And you know what? You're great the way you are. In fact, you're perfect the way you are. It just doesn't work for me. And so that's so distinct because I was just angry. I was like, I'm the victim. He's terrible. And I just had to stop and be like, no, he is who he is. And just because he doesn't fulfill your expectation doesn't make him a bad person. And so that was the first aha moment I had. And it was a very painful aha moment because I was very self-righteous. No, I'm responsible for the condition of my relationship. It's his fault. But in that moment, when I actually got responsible for myself, we were able to go to the divorce courts, sign the papers side by side. We even went out for dinner, and our divorce, I'm not even joking you, Alison, costed $80. That's what it costed to do, because we didn't have children, we didn't have property. So it was just us going and signing some papers. And then we went out for dinner, and then he dropped me home and I kissed him on the cheek and I said, good luck. And that was it. Yeah. It was the most uneventful divorce in the history of mankind. But it was the moment that I knew that anything was possible and that I could still be happy and he could still be happy. We just weren't going to be happy together. And for a little while, I felt like, oh, maybe I'm not meant for happiness. Maybe I'm not meant for marriage. You know, maybe you're supposed to be single. Because I felt kind of jaded, right, at this point. But then I got empowered and I'm like, no, I'm going to create the partner of my dreams. So I sat down and I just wrote. I just journaled and journaled. I'm like, this is the man I want to manifest. And 3 months later, here he is. And he's actually a coworker of mine who lives on the other side of the country, who I met over the phone, didn't know what he looked like. And we built this amazing, first of all, business relationship, but then eventually became a friendship. And so when we finally became a couple, we had this foundation of trust.
Yes.
That most couples don't get to create, because usually they go on one date, then they sleep with each other, then they start like picking up curtains. And
I love that you just said that. I don't want to derail what you're saying, but that is I just want to highlight that point right there, because I think our society has missed that it's not about being a prude, because it's not that. It's about like, are you developing the things that need to be developed prior to making a physical, sexual commitment or interaction with someone that distracts from really determining, do I actually even like this person? Is this a person that I can actually have a lasting relationship with? Oh no, then you end up being like all enamored.
Yeah.
Or hurt, whatever it is. So I believe in building, vetting somebody.
Yeah. But if we don't feel worthy, we're just going to pick up the first person that like smiles at us. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to fix them.
Yes.
Because we didn't actually take the time to actually get to know this person. And then we spend all this energy trying to change them. And they're like, they are the way they are. And then we make them wrong for being
love that.
Better.
That's such a great way of putting it, Jeanell, because it like, I think of this, but then just the way you're packaging it is so, it's cool because it like my mother used to say that women marry men and then they spend the rest of their lives trying to change them into women. It's just like, and falling in love with potential or somebody you want to change.
Yes. Or the idea that, because like my ex-husband did have a lot of potential. Like, I'll just give you that. Like he wanted to be the kind of man that I wanted him to be. It just wasn't innate for him.
Yeah.
Right. Because he grew up in like his parents were millionaires. His mom never worked a day in her life. She keep the house clean. She was always cooking. I had my own business. I hadn't cooked until I got married. Like I lived with my mom, so she cooked, Filipino, right? She cooked everything.
Yeah.
And so us coming together it was very rocky start. Whereas with Michael right now, it was like we had known each other for forever. Like it was when we came together, there was no friction. It was amazing. Anyway, I digress. So in the work that I was doing, they had us look into our past, into our childhood. And what it brought me back to was the first time I ever experienced trauma when I was 9. And what happened when I was 9 was, so I'm 9 years old. My dad and my mom call us into the living room. I'm 9, my brother is 3, my sister is 6. And I remember it was like nighttime and it was winter. For some reason, I remember that. So they call us into the living room and they sit us down. And my mom looks at us and says, "Kids, your dad is leaving. He doesn't love us anymore."
Oh my God.
And so what had been happening is that my dad actually had an affair with my mom's best friend who had lived in our basement, and he had gotten her pregnant. And it was crushing, right? Because my parents had the greatest marriage. I don't even know. Apparently there was some like roofie something. I don't actually know the full story. But anyway, so I remember.
That's so intense right there.
Yeah, as a 9, and I'm a daddy's girl.
The words, he doesn't love us anymore. Like that to me. Because that's what a kid would think anyhow.
Yeah.
But
have it articulated. And I think my mom said it to make him feel bad.
Oh yeah. No, I get it. I understand that. She was probably so hurt and just, and it was just her message to him, right?
Yeah.
But hoping he would say, "No, I still love you." Right.
Yeah. And so, he didn't say anything. He just turned around, grabbed his bags, and I watched him. I walked to the bay window on the second floor and I watched him leave. And I remember thinking, like, is this a joke? Is he going to turn around and be like, "Ha joke"?
Wow.
But he didn't. He kept walking and he got into a brown car that I don't remember. I don't even know how I remember what color the car is, but I think it's one of those moments that you just remember every little detail.
Yeah.
And so here is in that moment, standing at the window, watching my dad leave, what I decided in that 9-year-old mind of mine is A, no one loves me. B, I can't trust people. Wow. And C, everybody I love will leave me eventually.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know that was what was going on, but in the work that I had done in this course, that's what I saw. Those are the 3 decisions that little girl made that moment. Yeah. And so now I could, fast forward, I could see why I got in the relationships, why I chose the people that I chose in my life, which were never good for me.
Yes.
Right? They were the cheaters. They were the liars. Those were the men that I, for some reason, felt attracted to because I think I never felt worthy to have a good guy.
Yes.
So, so fast forward. So we're separated for three years. My dad was gone. And 3 years later, he comes back and he says to my mom, please forgive me. I want to come home. I'm sick. So at this point, my dad's, both his kidneys had failed and now he was going into health failure. And he wasn't even 40 yet. I think he was about 36.
Oh my God. Wow.
Right? I can't even, I'm 46. So I'm like thinking of myself at 35, 36 with 4 children now.
Yes.
And now finding out that I'm having to wait for a donor, for an organ donor. Right. So my mom's
seeing him all that time. Did you know the baby or were you close with the woman who was, had been living at your house at all, or?
When she was in our basement, yes, she was like my big sister. My mom, even through her birthday was 2 weeks before mine and a day before my sister's. And she would throw us these huge parties for the 3 of us.
Wow.
Like it was her sister. And she went to all of our family things. So it was very painful. It was very like betrayal, right?
Tremendous. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so my dad comes back and says, will you take me back? And my mom says, yes. Under 2 conditions. Number 1, you're back. You're not doing this back and forth thing. I want you to cut all ties with them. And number 2, we forgive and we forget. We never bring this up ever again.
Wow.
And she honored her word. She never brought it up. From that day till the day my dad died, never brought it up. Never threw it in his face. Never, nothing. And because of that, we were able. So my dad got a transplant. I would have been 13. I was 13 when he had his transplant. So that's about 4. So a year later, he gets his transplant. And so life goes back to normal. We start going to church again. He becomes a better father, better husband. Life is just amazing. Yeah. And so here we are at his deathbed, and he passes on. And here I am thinking like, wow, we got the peace and the closure that we needed from this whole thing. Like we actually got our happy ending as a family. But as I started,
how old were you when he died? Were you
24?
Oh, you were an adult. I thought you were a kid. Okay.
So he left at 9. He got his transplant when I was 13, because I remember being in grade 7 and being called to the office to be sent home. And then he was alive for another 13 years. So he got an extra 13 years of life, which was an amazing 13 years.
Yes.
But, of course, when we would get in arguments, all of that old stuff would come back and I would start saying really mean things because I hadn't actually dealt with that.
Yes.
And so he passed away and, we dealt with that. And here I am thinking that I've got closure in that. But as I started to get dating, and I'm in my mid-20s now, thinking about getting married and all these things, I realized that I actually hadn't dealt with that.
Yes.
And so here I am in this course, and I'm continuing to dive and dive and dive. And so that's where I just really started to get really passionate about helping other people going through these experiences. And of course, now that I've got this husband who is he's my teacher, he's my inspiration, he's my cheerleader, he's my rock, he's my playmate. There is so much that I can see in what works for us that I see isn't present in other relationships or any that I can really extract that and actually teach it and articulate it with people. And so I've been really passionate about helping people that are on the brink of divorce and bringing them back to the other side in less than 90 days.
Yeah.
It's pretty miraculous. And I feel like that's my calling.
Wow. So what did you come to terms with? I mean, there's so much there when, your mom, I don't know if your mom ever explained what happened or, if she just never discussed it and you felt kind of lost in that. Was that part of it?
I actually took my mom for her 65th birthday to Rome.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
I actually won a free trip. I used to be in my old life. I was in sales and I won a free trip to Rome. And when I was there and seeing all the churches, I was like, my mom would love this place. So I brought her back and I wanted to kind of get into that.
Yeah.
And so each day we would wake up and have a little cappuccino and our little, And I would just ask her about her childhood. I asked her about what she knew about dad.
Yeah.
And just trying to get some answers and clarity about what had happened. So I think she was able to share as much as she knew. I think there was still a part that she wasn't really clear about like how that even happened. Because like I said, they were great. It wasn't like their marriage was suffering or they were disconnected. None of it. It was very strange.
Yeah.
It's almost like if my husband right now cheated on me.
Like, what would that mean? Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So it's interesting.
But my mom is a very, very godly woman, and she just gave it up to God. And every day she was praying on her knees. So when my dad came back, there was no question for her. She was
I got that. I've heard that so many times when people are really like praying and like, So how do you help people in 90 days who, there's all different reasons that people are divorcing, and you want to help to change the whole perspective on divorce, right? So what is your strategy, or tell us about it?
Yeah, well, I think for me, I'm a very action-oriented person. And so we talk about like what's working and what's not working. And then we talk about, what are the expectations? Because I think that's a big piece of why there's so much frustration and friction in marriages, is that we actually haven't communicated what it is we want. And more importantly, we haven't actually created an agreement about what that is. So for example, I have no expectations on my husband. I let him do what he does. Because the thing is, when we have expectation, now there's this standard that we're holding someone else to. And if we don't communicate that, chances are we're going to be disappointed. And whose fault is that? That's our fault. And so, for example, my husband every morning makes coffee. He's always the first one up, always makes coffee. But I don't expect it. Yeah. Because if I expected it and then he didn't make it, then I'd be pissed.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we can actually make an agreement. But if I said to him, hey, babe, I want you to make coffee every single day, Monday to 7 days a week. And he agreed. And now he doesn't. Now I can say, okay, babe, we had this agreement and you didn't fulfill it. So now I could, that's another conversation. But what most people do is they have all of this expectation, don't communicate it, think their partner is a mind reader.
Yes.
And when they don't fulfill it the way they want, then they get upset and then they make their partner wrong. They emasculate their man or whatever, right? And now that bond, that love, that safety of the relationship has now been weakened. And now we start making up stories about each other. Oh, he doesn't love me. She doesn't care. Now we just start to break that apart. And so I see my job as kind of an interpreter to help each of them understand what is wanted and needed. And if there is resentment that needs to be dealt with, I hold space for them to talk about it. The other thing I see is a lot of couples don't know how to communicate difficult conversations, and they get defensive or guilt. And so there's always this point where they always shut down or they always get stuck. And so for me, it's about me being in that space and helping them move through that space without getting uppity about whatever, like getting the ego in the way and just getting on the other side of it.
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is about mindset, but more importantly, it's about the implementation and the integration of that behavior change.
Yes.
So it's about creating goals. It's about creating, what is the vision for your family? That's why we feel like we're stuck in this like vicious cycle of mediocrity, is because we're not actually creating. I say to people, why is it that the day that we get engaged or the day we get married is one of the happiest, most memorable days of our life? It's because we are creating in our imagination a future of possibility, of creation, of this partnership that we're like imagining. But oftentimes when we get into the routine of life, we got kids and bills, and we stop creating with our partner.
True.
And so I bring them back to really, okay, what is it at the end of the day? What kind of marriage do you want? What do you see? How do you see yourself retiring? Where do you want to live? And so now they're creating something that they can both feel like they're on the same page about. So a lot of times that's the feelings, like you're over there, I'm over here. We're actually not a team.
Yes.
And then the final piece is about creating structure and framework within the relationship. So for example, in communication, right? If you and I know how we deal with our coping mechanisms, we can talk about it. So I can say to you, like, hey, Alison, just so you know, when I get confronted, I like to go for a walk. Like, so this is what I said to my husband, right? He's the talker. He wants to over talk and keep talking and talking until we go to bed. I'm the one who's like, can we just take a break? Because this is not going anywhere. And I'm getting really agitated and I just need to go for a walk. That's me.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, this was a big problem because he actually wouldn't allow me to do that. And then I would get to a point where I would boil over and become a witch. And become the Green Hulk. Right?
Yeah.
So then I had to sit him down and say, listen, honey, when I need my time, I need you to give me this 5 minutes and I promise I will come back. And we will have
the key right there. You reassuring him that this is not, I'm not abandoning you. I'm here. This is just the way I need to do it in order to be here. This is how I can be here.
Exactly. And most couples don't do this, right? They're not responsible enough to do that. So then that's what I had to do. And he shared with me, he confessed to me, like, I'm scared that you're not going to come back.
Exactly. That's it.
So he just needed, just needed to hear from me that, babe, this is just my way to cool down so that I can come back without my crazy brain.
Yeah,
and actually complete this conversation. And for him, and so it's about creating structures and frameworks, because when you're in the thick of it, you can't rationalize. You're in like survival mode.
Yep.
So if you can create, like, this is how, when we get to this situation, this is how we're going to deal with it. Now you have guidelines to actually get you on the other side. So that's what I teach them.
You know what's cool? The two things that come to my mind as you're sharing all of this. It's really like great. There's a few things that me and my husband did that were really so powerful to just stay aligned and really be connected. One is like, and it relates to what you're saying. And this is an aside, like, how like, and this is not about me and him exactly, but you know how like, if there's two people screaming at one another in the room, there's no adult in the room. It's just people protecting their protector self. They're trying to like, they're afraid. So, and like one of the things like I talk to people about, if everybody's focused on right or wrong, like I take right and wrong out of my vocabulary.
Exactly.
This is nothing we're all going to be wrong. We're all going to misinterpret one another. Right. So, but what we would talk about, like, it was the beginning of the week, the beginning of the season, the beginning of the year. Hey, what would you love your week to look like? What would you love this winter to be like? Are there things that you're really dying to do or be fun or that you don't want to happen? Just being like a team is because then you like kind of fulfill one another's fun and your dreams. Like we used to say, I don't do boring. Like we don't do boring, Like we're going to enjoy our lives in the way that we each enjoy it, right? I just trailed off. So love to hear more. So let's say you have a couple that comes to you with infidelity. I mean, I have like a strategy for that too. I don't know, but I'm curious. What do you do? Let's say they're on the brink of divorce. Or also there's an epidemic of sexless marriages.
Yes.
Yeah, men are in a prison. I shouldn't just put men or women, but it could be either partner is in a prison of having no sex in their life, but they can't cheat.
Yeah, I think it's so unfair.
So unfair.
Oh my God.
Ridiculous. I'm going to hold you hostage to a sexless marriage. And if you cheat, you suck. Basically, like, what is that?
I actually, one of my first clients was that they hadn't had sex in 5 years and he was just dying. Like he's like, it's like dying plant. And I felt for him. He's like, I feel so rejected.
Yeah.
And he's a good looking guy. He's like, I'm not even 80. He was like in his 40s.
Yeah.
I just want to I want to go into the forest and like have sex in a bush. And like, he was this very adventurous kind of guy. And she was like, total prude. And I'm like thinking to myself, how did you guys get married?
Did you discuss it? Was this a conversation?
Right? Like
you have to find that out.
Yeah. But he said to me, he goes, she doesn't want to have sex with him, but she doesn't want him to have sex with anybody else. And if he does, she's gonna divorce him or whatever, right? And they're very Mennonite.
Mormon
or Mennonite.
Mennonite. Oh, forget Mennonite. I know. I'm familiar with. Yeah, I got it. Like, Yeah. So there's all those rules about sexual
Yeah.
connection too in a marriage that, you can't like do anything.
Yeah. And
except to have babies. Yeah.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, Allison, my first marriage was pretty sexless, and we were newlyweds, and I had a pretty high sex drive.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that we weren't having it. It was just really unfulfilling. It was like step one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There was no passion. And yeah, I felt really, really, I felt what those people feel.
Yeah.
And I've also been on the other side. Like I've also been cheated on as well. And so when a couple comes to me, my first question is, first of all, do you guys even want to save this marriage?
Yeah.
Because if there's going to be resistance to everything I say, then you don't need me. Go get divorced.
Yeah.
But if you're saying to me, Jeanell, I want to save this marriage. I want to be happy. I want to be in love again. I just don't know how to get there. I don't know the how. Then I can help you.
Yep. 100%. They both have to want it.
They got to want it. They got to be willing. I am not going to pull and drag someone over. You got to pay me way more money than that to do that work. But it's up to them to do the work, because I see them for, a couple hours a week, but they're together for the other 6.5 days, and they got to be willing to actually implement this into their life. It's not this thing that we just work on for the time we're together and then bye-bye, see you next week.
One of the things interesting, because it's really changing for some people, like their whole perspective on relationships and marriage. One of the things I do see, I'm sure you see it, but it's like, okay, so let's just pretend like in your childhood, your mother would get mad at this, whatever this thing was. Now you get married and you're in this relationship, and now your husband does this thing. So now you don't even know that he's breaking your childhood family rules. Yes. And now you're feeling anxiety because you feel like everybody's getting in trouble because mom's going to be mad, but you don't know that's the thing that's happening. And then you're so pissed off at him and disrespecting him, and you don't admire him anymore because he's breaking your mother's rules. I mean, and it's really like a thing that we have to know what our family rules were that we're still feel anxious about.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we had issues in our childhood, right, whether it was trust issues or, you know what I mean, that is going to show up in the relationship. So oftentimes, you and I both know this, is when we're in a relationship and things aren't going well. It's so easy to look outside of us for the problem. Yeah. And what I really try to train my clients to do is go inwards first, check out what's going on. And because it might actually have nothing to do with your partner. Maybe your partner triggered you, but the source of the pain is actually from when you were 9 years old, when your dad left you.
Exactly. Right? And then you can always address that issue. But the first stop always is inside. Because it's like this person is giving you an opportunity to feel something that's buried alive. Yeah. And then they still maybe have done something that you need to talk to them about, but it's a different conversation, right?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So I want to ask you, so in terms of, let's say, your parents, you had that experience, right, with your parents, infidelity. Do you see, and you don't have to get into like personal things if you don't want to, but do you see how that influenced, even your perspective on infidelity or being cheated on or being drawn in to things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's part of the vicious cycle we get into. We're like, well, there's evidence that what I believe is true, but I'm actually not dealing with right now. I'm dealing with like 35 years ago. I'm still reliving that experience. And so I think that's the thing, is we need to train ourselves to be really present to and be able to make that distinction.
Did you believe that men cheat and that they betray? Is that what you mean? Like, did you have like that underbelly, unconscious feeling, that this could be pulled out from, you're living this beautiful life as this child. You're looking at a marriage that seemingly looks fantastic. And then it is what is happening underneath this sudden shock, this betrayal. Wait, my reality is not even real.
Yes.
That's very disorienting.
Yeah, definitely. And even right now, like what
Yeah.
I'm grappling with right now is a feeling of safety.
Yes.
Like
Right.
I don't sleep well.
Yeah.
I'm like little sound, I wake up and I'm like,
Yeah.
why do I not feel safe? I'm in my bed, I'm in my
Yeah.
home. I have my beautiful husband right there. My dog
Yeah.
is like right. Everything is perfect. And yet with inside me, there's this like instability. So like, where is that?
Yeah.
And actually where I saw that was I realized that there was like unworthiness. And I'm like, why do I feel unworthy?
Yeah.
I have so much love in my life. But when I dug under that, what I saw was I was brought back to the several times in my life, starting from when I was about 7 or 8, that men have tried to sexually abuse me or molest me or,
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
But because I've always been taught to be strong, be resilient, don't worry about it, move on, it's not your fault, and then try to just kind of like bury it over here. But because I'm so self-aware now, right, in my line of work, I am so present to all of these little whispers that haven't healed yet.
Yeah. And just even like, I mean, that always, I mean, I was sexually abused too. I openly talk about it because it really, it also, whenever we're abused in any way, we tend to absorb that shame as our own somehow. It becomes some issue of worthiness, right? So I look at like, and also thinking about having this person you're experiencing as an older sister in your home, this beautiful soul that's your mother's best friend. So you're watching your mother's betrayal. Like, it's almost like, how, like what you said about your husband, like all of a sudden somebody switches. That to me is scary, right? And as a child, if you're believing something and then it's different suddenly, that's scary as shit. Like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
This is a person, and now they're gone.
Yeah.
They're not what they said they were, right?
Yeah. And then add on top of that,
yeah,
meeting couples every day who are like, I don't know what happened. I thought we were happy.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you've gone.
Yes.
And so then I'm like, I start questioning myself. I'm like, is that
us?
Would that ever happen to
Yes, right? Because of course you would do that. Of course. And it makes sense that you would, that's what I love about life and God and whatever spirituality or whatever we're doing, that any of our difficulties, it's like gives us a pathway to help others in that difficulty. Right. So even you just being openly saying, yeah, I have this incredible marriage, but it makes my mind go because I had that same experience. Doesn't mean that it's evidence for today. It happened yesterday, but it feels like it could. Because it didn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it wouldn't make sense now.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to be someone who would always be smiley face. I'm always great. I would never share what was actually going on inside of me because I was taught and brought up to be strong.
Yeah.
To be, the good girl, the good Catholic girl who's always obedient and always kind and all these things. But I'm like a rebel. I'm a shit disturber. I consider myself a loving disruption. I'm like I'm like a bull in a china shop sometimes.
Let's go. Me too.
Right? Yeah. I'm just like, let's do it. Whatever that looks, let's get messy. And so I can see how that has really like who I used to be and who I am now is very, very different. But I also see that, I share myself very vulnerably with my clients. And the reason I do that is, first of all, I want them to get, they're not alone.
Yeah.
Very and important. Second of all, I want them to know that I get them, that I hear them. I'm not just this person that's like, oh yeah, I understand. And when I really don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest gifts that I can give someone is my listening, letting them know that they're not alone. I don't need to fix them. I don't even need to give them advice, right? Just that, those two things alone is something that I think this world sorely, sorely is dying, craving, needing right now.
100%. Just to be understood, not judged, like I'm not crazy. Everybody has their struggles. And that goes into like a big thing that you stand for is the concept of forgiveness, which I think is incredible because I think we make our spouses or, romantic relationships, right? Too much. Yes. But like almost like they have too much power. Meaning, I don't mean that they're not totally important and maybe the most important things in our lives, but when they have a power, then everything they do has so much more energy or fuel. But if they can just be another human being that you're loving, and what they're doing isn't to you.
Yes.
You're not doing this to me. You're having an experience and you're acting this particular way. And because I'm your best friend, let me understand you instead of put you into my mold of what is going to make me feel better. Yeah. I remember my son said to me once, I share this, I think but it applies to everything. Like I wasn't a yeller, with my kids, but I was this one day yelling I have 4 kids. So I was like yelling at the 3 boys or something. And my son said, Mom, when you yell at us, I know you're really not yelling at us. I know you're really yelling at yourself. And I'm like, you know what? You're 100% right. Because what you're doing right now, I feel is a reflection on me, and it's not. It makes me feel like I'm not being a good mom. So you're 100% right, Luke. I'm yelling at me. I think I'll go in the other room and yell at myself. You know what I mean? It's not you. It's not you for me.
How profound.
I know. He was young too. He was really young when he said that. But that's a true statement. And like, even when we're yelling at our spouse, what is I'm not yelling at my spouse, but because there's no reason to yell. People, I mean, come on. You should be able to have a conversation with a person who's another adult in your life. That's what I think. Yeah. When you're yelling, there's something off inside. There's something going on. Fear.
Yeah. Usually those people I find didn't feel heard as a child.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they're just here. They are trying to dominate the conversation when that actually does not work.
No, never.
But, to your point, I think one of the things that people need to get is whatever the other person is experiencing, their emotions, right? Because we don't come home feeling crappy. We have crappy days. And we say we love each other, and yet we give people, especially our partner, very little space to be themselves, especially when that self is not the big, happy, shiny person that we love them to be. And we have a really hard time, and I can attest to, because this was me too, have a hard time with being with the uncomfortableness of being in someone's sadness or anger or like that negative experience. So one of the things with my husband is my husband used to be a crier. I mean, he still is kind of a crier, but in the beginning, he cried a lot more. And I remember when I first saw this, and it was one of those things, I used to call it his period. It was like every 3 to 6 months, he would wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and just the whole morning was just sour and just picking fights. And I'm like, who are you right now? But after he would realize what he was doing, he would feel so bad because we would get in a fight, which we don't fight, just so you know, but we would get in a fight. And then he'd be like, oh my God, I don't know what got into me. I'm so sorry. And he would cry. And then I would say to him, why are you crying? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just so sad. And I remember just feeling so uncomfortable with that. And like, I feel like, can you just stop crying, please? Because I was uncomfortable. And then, of course, it made him feel worse.
Yeah.
And so then I really had to look at myself and go, okay, what is it? Why am I so uncomfortable with this emotion, with being in the emotion with this man? And I saw him like, okay, I have that mentioned cry. I was told you got to be strong. I was told that crying is weakness. Like I had all of these stories and beliefs, and I had to just kind of come to terms with that. And then come back to my husband, and just actually the next time it happened, I was totally different. I was like, babe, it's okay. You can cry. I got you. Because here's the thing is I made it mean that if he was crying, that I wasn't doing a good enough job as a wife.
Exactly. Yep.
Because if I was being a good enough wife, he would be happy all the time.
Yeah.
So my point in this is that we need to remember that, first of all, we need to allow people to have the emotion and not take it personally.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. So this is, I think, the thing with couples is we get so, right? We make it mean about us. Our ego starts showing up, and then the fear, and then the defensiveness, and then it just goes to the crapper after that.
Yeah. And it's like, we're only responsible for the 3 feet around us. So if we're having an emotion, and now we're instead of going inward and we're tinkering around outside, now I'm going to change him so I feel better. I always tell people, like, about kids or whatever, that never tell your kid or your spouse, something that they want, that you want them to tell themselves. Like, sometimes, we're uncomfortable with their emotions. So we want to change that. And, that's really like at the heart of like even codependency. It's like, oh, I'm gonna abandon myself, right, to please you, but I'm gonna it's really selfish to always try to change someone else and try to make them be what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. And the impact of that, can you imagine you or I being someone where our husbands say to us, Jeanell, you're not good enough. Can you just be different, please? Can you just not do that? Can you just not do that and that and that and that and that and that and that?
Exactly.
Like, I can't even imagine my husband doing that to me. Like how suffocating and how that would make me feel about myself. And then the word that comes up is broken. Am I broken?
Yeah. It's incredible. Our society supports that women are like, yeah, men are clueless. You just got to teach them, or, teach them how to dress, or all these different, like, we are taught that that's our job to make sure that they show up. So we feel good about the way they show up. It's such bullshit. They're grown ass men.
Yeah.
And we don't, I'm not saying we, but I'm saying like our society taught us not to treat them that way. Yeah. That they they get to decide, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, tell us more, because I want to also be respectful of your time. So
yes. Well, I think one thing that we didn't touch on is and we touched it a little bit, but forgiveness.
Yes, let's do that. Tell us your philosophy.
Let's talk about forgiveness. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of forgiveness because I believe that as a society, we don't actually understand forgiveness.
No,
and we were taught that forgiveness was something that it's not. At least it's not the whole picture. Yeah. And so I think this is why we all say we want to forgive, we want to let go, because that's the only way to happiness and peace.
Yes.
Compassion and forgive. That's the only way, guys. There's no shortcut. You actually got to do the work. But I think because we don't actually understand it, we're not able to do it. So, what do we think forgiveness is? Well, we think forgiveness is about if someone hurts me, they should ask me for forgiveness, and then I'll choose whether or not I'm going to forgive them. And then I will give them my grace or I won't.
Yes.
So it's now the power is where? With the other person. Right? And my mom is dealing with my cousin about this. And so it's like, it's so real right now. But my cousin said something, which was my mom got really upset about my grandma, which was not true. And it was nothing even really big, but it became this huge thing. It's gone on for 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. It's so dumb. It's about basically, so let me just give the context of the story. So my family is the only family in Canada outside of the Philippines. And oftentimes we help them financially. And so my cousin went to school and she didn't actually get a job because she met a guy, got married, and then had another baby. So anyway, she was telling people that her husband is the one who paid for her school, even though it was my grandma.
Okay.
So my mom was upset. And I mean, I get it. But like, seriously, 15 years later, like, freaking give it up. So then I said to my mom, because they're basically like outed of the family.
Wow.
They're not invited to anything.
Wow.
So I said to my mom, I'm like, Mom, like, can you just give this up? Because this is not fair that they don't get invited to anything. Their siblings do, their mom does, their dad does, but not them. That's not fair. Yeah. And she's like, well, she hasn't asked me for forgiveness yet.
Wow.
I'm like, but she's not, her, she's not going to, because she thinks she's right. She's like, well, then I'm not going to forgive her. Meanwhile, here's my mom's health deteriorating. She's every time she brings up her name or thinks about her, she gets so riled up.
Wow.
And so I want to say to people, like, forgiveness is not about about the other person. Forgiveness is about us 100%. Releasing ours, breaking free from the emotional prison that we put ourselves in.
Without any doubt.
And so we have the power where it's not the other person. So you get to just decide that I'm going to forgive this, but I don't need to talk to them. I don't need them to ask forgiveness. I am just going to forgive them. Why? Because I need peace. I need that release. Mm-hmm. But most people don't get that. They think it's tied to something else, or they have guilt about forgiving. They're going, well, if I forgive this person, what does that say about me? Does that make, and so it's like, it's ego, it's pride. But at the end of the day, if what we want is love and connection and family, none of that stuff is going to actually get us there, because all we're doing is really essentially living in fear.
It's complete fear. It's so interesting, like a story like that. It's like things take on, it's like one long emotional response. That's what, just in terms of neurologically, it's like that moment is frozen in time. It's like a snapshot. And like, really, if you think about it, like, when they talk about it, just even in the Bible, like it's about like canceling the debt. So the debt is that she owes your mother to say, will you forgive me? Initiate the forgiveness. So that's the debt. But canceling that debt has some meaning to your mother, that if I cancel that debt, then somehow like that wrong isn't righted. But
I think, and this is my own, what I think is going on is that if she has it, her story is, if I forgive her, then I'm disrespecting my dead mother.
Which is all those belief systems.
Oh my God, my grandma cared. She cared more than my grandma cared.
Exactly. But it has to be more, because if you even think about your mother's experience with your father, her decision was to completely never, ever bring it up again. And it's just interesting to me that she did not, she's holding on to this other area of forgiveness. And also the insight, like if we have to forgive someone, it also requires being able to understand that we all make mistakes, but to understand that that woman who told that lie, she told it for a reason. And it probably had to do with her own shame, probably wanting the not to feel embarrassed that her husband didn't pay for it. Maybe she felt ashamed about it. But it's like, it's funny. And that has to do with like our connection with everyone.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many childhood stories in that story you just told that it's all little kids involved, right? Yeah. It's what it is. It's all these emotional states that are running the show that really everybody just needs love and to feel.
Yeah. I know. We all just want to play at the playground and be friends and play duck, duck, goose together and hug each other. Yeah, totally. The last thing I want to say about forgiveness, though, if we're unable to forgive someone, chances are, and this is what I tell my clients, chances are there's something that you need to forgive yourself for.
Yeah.
Right. And also, how can you give something to someone when you don't actually know that experience for yourself?
Yep.
So like, if you're someone who's really hard on yourself and you compassion is something you rarely give yourself, chances are you're going to have a really hard time being compassionate to others. So that's why, again, it all starts here. But of course, it's so much easier to go out there and look for the problem out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you find it? I'm going back to your mother. I'm sorry. You're going to
go for it.
Don't you find it fascinating? Like she like completely forgave your father and just moved on. But like, that was such a huge betrayal. And then with this other thing that's like not even related to her, she like put her energy in that. I just find it fascinating.
Well, but it makes sense to me though. It totally, of course. It's almost like integrity. It's like we are really great at being integrous with other people, but we don't have great integrity with ourselves. So in this case, my mom can forgive people that hurt her, but if she thinks you hurt someone she loves, no.
Right. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So listen, it was so nice having you on. You're just such a ball of like light and just fun, and you have such good energy. So tell us like where they can find you, and where are you in Canada?
I am. I live in Vancouver on the West Coast.
So many people from Vancouver. come on here. It's interesting. The person right before you was Vancouver. Okay. So, so tell us where they can find you. Anything else you just really, maybe like I interrupted you and you want to say, and you're like, shit, she interrupted me. I want to say,
you know what?
Anything.
I actually really wanted to talk to you about great marriages. I feel like that was something we didn't do that. And I'm like really committed. Like, can we do that right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I would actually love to know from you, first of all, like what you see and what you've experienced. What would you say are the top 5 things that you guys did that you see that no one else does? It's like the secret sauce. What would you say
for marriage?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I can tell you what I think they were. So one is that we never, ever, ever focused on right or wrong. So like if I had a feeling or if he had a feeling, we would just go to the other person and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to make this up. This wasn't something exactly with us, but let's just say he came in the door and he looked angry. Let's just pretend. I would say, hey, hon, when I looked at your face, like I felt like maybe you looked angry and you're not really saying anything. Is there something wrong? I'm not saying that you are angry. I'm just curious. And he would say, oh God, no, I have a really bad headache. So it's just an example. So it'd be more like, or if I felt, hurt by something, he would be like so willing to just listen to the hurt. So I would express a hurt in terms of myself. Without accusation. So I think anything that whatever I feel, I own. So it's not, I don't feel anything because of you. And I never did that. I would be like, I'm not feeling this because of you. I'm feeling this. And then he would be able to hear it without defense. We just didn't do that thing. Yeah. I think defense, attack, defend. We're taught that. We're taught to do that. So we didn't do that. Another thing I believe we, I'm being a little blunt, but we had sex every day. And we did that. We were intentional about our intimacy emotionally. And, he would go out of his way to do things that he knew that would alleviate things that were hard for me. And I did the same for him. Another thing I did with him is that I felt like I was an observer of my husband. So I was intentional. I would notice little things about him. So I would notice if he was like changing the sheets and making the bed, that he loved when I went on the other side of the bed and did it with him. He didn't ask for it, but I noticed it. And and then I remember saying this to him, I'd say, you just love partnering and doing things together, don't you? And he'd be like, I do. So even if I didn't know how to do what he was doing, he loved doing things jointly. Another thing that I think was it definitely was a big part of it, is that we were intentional. We planned. So like, hey, how are we going to, we got a winter approaching. How are we going to make it? So we just keep fun. We have connection like we do. So what trips do you want to go on? We probably went away 4 to 6 times a year, even if it was for a weekend or an overnight. We also did outdoor things. So we would hike together and talk. And every night, I have a lot of things, every single night. And I'm really not kidding. It's almost weird. We would go to bed and then we didn't have to have sex at night either. Like, what is that shit? Like, you don't even have energy then.
Better. You got way more energy. Yeah.
Yes. Like you want me to reserve it till you're exhausted? Makes no sense. So basically, at the end of the day, for whatever reason, we would laugh so hard. So we both had a sense of humor. So if I said something to him like, oh my God, I feel like I have a 14-year-old boyfriend. Like I would say that to him, he'd be like, so, and we just thought we got a kick out of one another. We didn't take things personally. We weren't offended. He didn't put stuff on me. I didn't put my shit in his toilet bowl and expect him to flush it. We genuinely were best friends. He was my go-to. We'd laugh. We had fun, so I mean, does that answer your question? I mean, there's so many.
100%. And it's so great because I'm like, this would be my list too, to be honest.
Oh, I have another one too. This is a big one.
Tell me.
I am full blown in my feminine when I tell you that I made sure, and I don't care what anybody thinks, I know it's the right thing to do. I feel an obligation to maintain my physical self in order to always be attractive to him. And he did the same. And I allowed him to be a man. I loved the masculine. I loved when he's an alpha, and I just loved it. Kind, good to like, but if he said like, well, yeah, we're not doing that, I would, it's not like a submissive thing. Yeah. He heard me. It was like, I trusted him that he would do the right thing. And what really helped me, because I'm an entrepreneur, business, I'm busy as hell. I'm in charge of everybody. And to allow him to be the last buck felt so good, and he would like bring me dinner, he'd do the laundry, but he also was like, you know what? I'd be like, what should we do? And he would have a plan, and I would let that plan be whatever that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Girlfriend, you and I are so similar. And I think like maybe you and I have come up with like the secret formula, because that is pretty much everything I would say. The only thing I might add to that, for us anyway, which makes a really big difference, is appreciation.
Oh my God.
We appreciate the crap out of
it. So do we.
And not just like, thank you, but babe, that dinner you made, like, oh my God, thank you so much, so that I could do the work and you did that. Like, so my husband used to be 300 pounds and I would try to get him to the gym, and he's always been a big boy since he was a kid. So he had, some self-confidence issues, and I would encourage him to go to the gym. And one day he's like, yeah, okay, I'll go with you. And 2 days later, I noticed his arm looked different. And I said, hey, babe. And I squeezed, I'm like, your arm is really good. He's like, oh, yeah? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you bulk up really fast. Yeah. And of course, I got a little turned on. So next, he's like, maybe I'll go to the gym again. Yes. He lost 100 pounds.
Wow, that's awesome.
And he is so fine. My husband's half black, half white, Portuguese. Oh, I love it. Yeah. 6'1", goatee, bald, beautiful man. But yeah, like it was in me acknowledging him and like telling him how noticing the effort he's putting in to look for me. And then just like giving him the little validation, like, yeah, baby, made him feel so confident in himself.
Yes.
And he came to me as this like red-faced introvert, shy guy. My husband is now a professional musician in a Rage Against the Machine tribute band. He plays every weekend in the nightclubs. He plays in a Pink Floyd band. Like he is this confident man, because I believe I, as his wife, has really taken on being the person that allows him to see his greatness just as he sees my greatness. And so I love that. So every day I give him at least 20 kisses a day. We say, I love you at least 20 times. Yes. That's just our love language. And when he says, baby, I want some loving, I will try to say yes 99% of the time. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm so glad you said that, because that right there, appreciation, one of the things, like even, my husband's no longer alive, but one of the things that is a precursor for me, if I ever, end up being in a long-term relationship, serious relationship, is appreciation. To me is a number one. Oh, you know what the word I would use? That I would look across the room and I admired him. And I would tell him the way, and it would bring tears to my eyes. Like I admired the man that he was. So, and that right there, admiration, appreciation is, think about, and knowing that he lifted me up. Like he thought I was so incredibly like valuable. I always felt so special. And I know, like, I just feel like that is so key. I so appreciate that you said that, because I really would tell him the littlest, like, I appreciate how hard you work. I can't believe what you did. I always trust you. I love the way that you do these things, and just putting words to what you're thinking. Yeah. Is so important.
Well, here's the thing about marriage is that we all say we want to be appreciated and loved. But then when I say to someone, okay, if that's what you want from your husband,
do it.
Go do it. And they go, what? Yeah. Why?
I hate that.
Why would I do that? They haven't done anything. I said, well, then.
It's not transactional.
Right.
We attract who we are.
And also, like, why does he have to do something? Why can't he just be himself?
Yes.
Why do we have to perform?
No. Yes.
To be worthy of love?
Exactly.
That's the messed up thing that I think our society has created for us, is like, okay, when our worthiness is what's in the bank, you know, like all of these other things, rather than just who we are, because we're just great as who we are. And that's the one thing that my husband has taught me, because like you said, as an entrepreneur, there are days when I'm like, fuck my life. And I feel so low and unworthy. And he looks at me like, what are you talking about? Yeah. You are glorious and beautiful, and you do so much good in the world. Mm-hmm. That doesn't change just because that client said no to you.
Yes.
Like, he is just the most amazing. And I want to add one more thing to the list.
Do it.
Vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
My husband and I are so vulnerable with each other.
Good. Yes.
And so, and all of my craziness and all of my like insecurities that don't make any sense.
Yes.
I can just let and say it and cry about it and not feel like I have to put up any sort of like.
That's everything. Mm-hmm. Like your go-to. I used to say, you're my run-to, my go-to. Yeah. Like you can tell them anything and they're not going to judge you. Yeah. That is my first, like, that is the first thing I will run away from. If a person is not approachable, I want nothing to do. I honestly want nothing to do with them. Like it doesn't, right? Oh, and also I think men should be chivalrous. Sorry, but that is it. Like my husband was I should stop saying is, but was so chivalrous. And it just means a lot. You feel special.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so my love language, I think sounds like you, is acts of service.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when I come down, like I work late, I come down, I hear music playing, I hear him singing. Yeah. I see him dancing in the kitchen while he's cooking.
Yes. We sound very similar.
The most incredible meal. Like he is he's a Gordon Ramsay. He's a big Gordon Ramsay fan. Super creative. But to me, and then he goes, oh baby, by the way, I know you like wine, so I picked you up a bottle of wine. Oh, and I also saw these chocolates that I thought you might like, so I got that for our dessert.
You know, and what I'm just like, my husband, all of those things, the coffee would be ready. He'd go to my office, set it all up, everything ready. But what I do want to say, because we do have to go, I want to say something that we discussed off camera, is that as we're discussing these things, I want any of the listeners to notice, do you feel a sense of like, gag me, I don't even want to hear this? But because women are taught, maybe men too, are taught that when you hear about a good relationship, you're supposed to be like, yeah, right, blah, 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 and be cynical about it or be jealous or I guess the real question would be to ask yourself is, do you actually want that? And if you really want that, you may not want to criticize when you're seeing other people have it. Because the reason we're talking about it is because we want people to know that it's possible. It's not like we're doing anything super magical. We're just not judging. No. We're being open and vulnerable, and we're giving. And, you know, we're believing in the person we're with. So the thing is that when you see people, even on the internet, you know, don't criticize it if you want it. Because, and it's not disgusting to have a great relationship. How have we been taught that? That is mind blowing. Just saying that out loud. It's like, oh, let me throw, like, where did we get that from?
Yes.
Like, no, like we're supposed to be seen holding one another's hands and like sitting on their lap. Like that's like not the norm somehow.
Yeah. I think, you know what my philosophy is, I think people think that people like us are living either lying about it.
Oh yeah. Lying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or living in this la la land that actually has nothing to do with reality. Like we're living in like a fantasy world. No. We're not
actually just facing our shit and loving the person we're with.
Going through life together. Yeah. Not that we don't have ups and downs. I just know that whatever up and down I'm in, he is right there with me, holding my hand and being girlfriend. Like I got your back. Whatever happens, I'm not gonna ever leave you, and I love you. Whether we live in a $5 million house or whether we live in a cardboard box.
That's it. That loyalty, commitment. It's unbelievable. I mean, you can have it. And I guess the larger question, and then we got to go. The larger question is, I ask people like, if you're somehow questioning it, do you actually really want that? Do you want it? Because your heart needs it and wants it. But, what's the threat? I guess for people, what is the threat to have someone that is that you're that close to? I think what I used to do is that I wouldn't be with someone who could hurt me. So, then, my husband could hurt me because I love him. You have access to my heart in that way. And maybe people don't want to, do that.
100%.
It's good to know if you don't want to do that, at least know it, because, it's a decision to take the risk of loving, right? I mean, I lost my husband, so I know the risk, better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all, so.
And some people believe that. And some people, that I meet a lot of times is saying, you know what, I would rather not even go there. But to me, my belief is that is what life is about, isn't it? Isn't that what we're made of, is love? And if we go through life trying to avoid love just because we may get hurt, imagine what we would be missing out on.
Well, hurt also is so valuable too. Being hurt also teaches us. It also teaches us how to interact in a relationship in a better way each time, right? So, well, we have to go. I loved having you on the show. We could talk for 5 hours, but we can't. So, tell us, did we already do that? Tell us
we didn't.
Where do we find you?
Yes.
Yes.
We started.
Yes,
okay. You can find me at saveourmarriage.ca.
Okay. Awesome.
And if you go there, you can actually book a 1-hour free consultation with me to see if coaching is right for you. And it may not be, and it may be. And it's really
Zoom? You do Zoom calls like you do online stuff?
Yes. Yes, I do. Awesome. I actually have clients in Tanzania.
Oh,
I have clients. I have clients mostly in the US, and I have a few clients in Canada.
Awesome. Love it. All the information is going to be in the show notes. I just loved having you. I love getting to know you. You're a delight.
Appreciate that.
It's a wrap. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.